I didn't know if I had what it took after losing my dad to continue on the same path that I thought that I wanted to go down. My challenge, my test to myself was like, all right, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to buy another fix and flip, and I'm going to do the entire project myself, like literally everything on the property, because though my dad was a contractor and I had been around the trades my entire life, I was never professionally employed in anything, you know? So it was just kind of like my test to myself. I did that and I got everything done, figured everything out. I plumbed the whole house. I ran the wire in the whole house. And, it took me forever. Like it probably should have been a 30-day rehab. And it took me, 5 or 6 months because I'm still working full time at this point. But it worked. And I was like, all right, I got this. I can do this.
Welcome to the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast, the ultimate destination for accredited investors and entrepreneurs seeking alternative wealth building strategies. Discover how to fast-track your journey to wealth and time freedom by thinking outside the box. If you're ready to join the ranks of the Contrarian Capitalists and learn the most effective ways to reach your financial goals faster, you're in the right place. Let's get started with today's episode of the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast.
Thank you once again for joining another episode of the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast. I'm your host and your favorite silverback, Sylvania Harod. And on today's episode, I bring to you a man that everyone in Delaware County knows. He's a great guy and an even better investor, Mr. Drew. I'm not going to mess up your last name. I'm just going to
Perfect. Drew Farnese.
Farnese. I was going to say, I didn't know it was Farnese or Farnese because I've never said your last name. I was just like,
that's okay. Sure. All good, brother.
What's up, man? How you doing today?
Doing great, man. Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So as I'm going through these episodes of The Ugly Truth, what I really want people to understand is that, so over the last 12 years, I've had the opportunity to work in the world of behind the scenes of different people who are building coaching programs, et cetera, et cetera. And what I realized is a lot of it is a lot of crap. And so my audience had asked me to bring in real world experts. So I don't know how long this series is going to run. I'm just going to keep doing it until the wheels fall off.
I love it.
I'm just so grateful to have you, man.
Dude. Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And I totally vibe with that message. It's funny. Like I've been in the world of real estate investing for over a decade now. I just crossed that like a month ago. I can now say it's been a decade. Yeah. And I've always been like a big proponent of coaching, mentorship, and I still am to this day. But having hired so many coaches and mentors, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, masterminds and everything. And again, I still am a believer in it today, but I've also seen the other end of it and seen so many guys that are just full of shit, to be honest. Yeah. And they're kind of coaching and, promoting things that you mentioned before we got on that, they used to do in the past. And the reason they're now coaching is because they can't do it anymore. So I resonate with that, brother.
It's kind of funny. I was talking to a gentleman prior to this interview. He's like, hey, you're good at connecting people to different individuals that are real world. And he's like, why aren't you in the game? And I go, who said I'm not in the game? And he goes, oh, I was just curious. He's like, if you have access to all these people that are doing capital and different things, like why aren't you just running downhill and capturing every deal? I said, because the reality is I am not an opportunist. I used to be an opportunist. And now I'm more strategic in the time I want to spend because I really want to spend time around my kids. So I can sit here and there's endless amounts of time you can do things. But I agree with you when it comes to like certain coaches and certain programs, certain things going there. And I value masterminds because I value hanging out with cool people who are still in the trenches and doing stuff.
Best part, for sure.
Because at times this world can be a little lonely because you're used to being by yourself. You're roaming the jungle of business by yourself.
Absolutely.
And so I'm curious. So it's been 10 years. Give us a little bit about your background and what led you to the point where you're at today.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So it all started with me getting my girlfriend pregnant at 20 years old. So, I was working in a manufacturing company at the time. I was a quality control manager, and, I wasn't making a lot of money. And I kind of had everything like going against me. I never finished high school. I got kicked out of high school. Now I got a girlfriend pregnant at 20 years old. We're not married. I'm kind of at basically a dead end job. And that was just kind of like my, my wake up call is like, I don't want to be what the stereotype would, predict that I'm going to be based on all these things that I just mentioned, and that led me down a path of, I picked up some real estate investing books. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that was, it's so funny with a lot of real estate guys, because it always starts with Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
100%.
It's wild.
I literally have the EBSI model on my board.
I love it.
It's just this. And once I saw that, I was like, okay. This 1,000% makes sense. I don't mean to cut you off, but yeah, it's sitting.
No, all good, man. All good. It's the one commonality that almost everybody in real estate has. But that kind of got the wheels turning for me. It lit a fire inside of me. I started going to local real estate networking events and everything. And I was always the youngest guy in the room by far. It's like at this time, now I'm 21 years old or something. And my local real estate investor association, still to this day, it's like predominantly older, kind of retired gentlemen and everything. So I'm kind of rubbing shoulders with guys that are in their late 50s, early 60s, but they had walked the path that I figured out that I wanted to do also, right? So just started connecting with people and everything. I hired a mentor back then. And I kind of had this brilliant plan that I was going to replace my income with cash flow from rentals. I wanted to just be a landlord, And as I started like searching and hunting for properties, I didn't really find any in my area that I wanted to invest in that really made sense as a rental, but I did find one that made a lot of sense as a flip. So that was the first pivot. I was like, dude, it's a deal. I'm going to do it anyway. So bought it, flipped it, and made a lot more money than I probably should have, since I didn't really know what I was doing. It's like at the time I was probably making $70,000-$80,000 a year at my job, but that's probably only because I was working 80 hours a week. I wasn't making a lot of money. Now I flipped this house in 8 weeks or so, and I probably made $60,000 or $70,000 in 8 weeks. It's like, oh, holy crap! There's something here, right? Yeah. So the other part of that plan was, as I was kind of setting everything up in my mind, it was like, I'm going to handle the real estate aspect of everything. And my dad was a general contractor. So I was like, this is perfect, because whether I'm buying flips or rentals, there's always going to be a construction aspect to it in some capacity, right? So cool. I'll handle the real estate side. Dad'll handle the construction. We'll be off to the races. Did that first flip. It worked. Fast forward, started buying some more flips, buying some more rentals. And only 2 years into that journey, shitty part of the story, 2 years into that, we were working on a large rental at the time, large renovation. And my dad passed away in the middle of that project. And that sucked on a lot of levels, obviously. Like, me and my dad were very close, but there was also that level and dynamic of, I just lost my business partner too, and looking back, like everything about that time sucked, but I'm grateful that I had so much work at the time that had to be done. Like I had 3 pretty sizable at the time renovations for us. It was probably about $300,000 or $400,000 worth of renovations that were all underway. And I knew that everything had to get done. So I never really grieved. I never really processed. I just kind of put my nose down and freaking grinded through it and got everything done. And I knew that if I didn't, it's like, I'm screwed. Now my own house where my wife and kids are like is at risk. I have to get everything done. And I did. And but once I kind of got through all that, I kind of I didn't know if I had what it took after losing my dad to continue on the same path that I thought that I wanted to go down. So like my challenge, my test to myself was like, all right, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to buy another fix and flip. and I'm going to do the entire project myself, like literally everything on the property, because though my dad was a contractor and I had been around the trades my entire life, I was never professionally employed in anything, you know? So it was just kind of like my test to myself. I did that and I got everything done, figured everything out. I plumbed the whole house. I ran the wire in the whole house. And, it took me forever. Like it probably should have been a 30-day rehab. And it took me, 5 or 6 months because I'm still working full time at this point. But it worked. And I was like, all right, I got this. I can do this. So I carried on. I kept going. I brought on a partner, fast forward a little bit, started scaling the fix and flip company, started a construction company in-house, started hiring guys so we could do all of our own work with guys on payroll rather than bringing in subcontractors for everything. And this is where it somewhat ties into today with the software and everything. As I was scaling up and buying more flips, the way that I was kind of sourcing a lot of those was a couple different ways. I would purchase from wholesalers. We did some of our own like direct to seller marketing, and I was buying a lot from the MLS. What I would do with that is I would go into our MLS, extract everything out. And I was pretty dialed in at this point with our average cost per square foot on a renovation. So I would basically just plug in some variables in an Excel sheet on everything. And instead of looking through thousands of properties that could be prospective flips for us, they would just spit out the 10 to 15 that match our buy box. I tried to show this to a bunch of my buddies at the time that were also flippers, landlords, acquisitions guys. And everybody was like, dude, that's way over my head. I didn't think it was tech savvy at all at the time. I'm just like, this is Microsoft Excel with some formula, guys. Like, this is not crazy. Yeah. But nobody could really wrap their head around it. So at that time, I was like, one day it'd be pretty cool to turn that into a software with a nice, pretty bow on it that makes everything real easy for someone. Fast forward a couple more years, I ended up dissolving the fix and flip company that I had at the time. Partnership just kind of didn't work out. And I started focusing more on wholesaling and direct to seller marketing. And I scaled that up a lot. I ended up with a big sales team training salespeople for a couple years, and still ended up picking up some flips and rentals throughout that entire time period and everything. And honestly had some really profitable years. And I kind of had to park some money anyway. And with the wholesale company, we already had a website and some back-end tech things that were somewhat sophisticated. So I was naive and I was like, hey, how hard could it be to plug in that MLS thing that I was doing years ago to our website that exists? And it's funny, man. Like I really thought that I'd be able to build and develop this whole idea for $50,000 and it'll take a couple months of my life. And I still don't have a total because obviously it never ends. The running total continues month after month. But man, I passed over $500,000 into it and 2 years into it like last year. So, I was way off, but now today it does exist and it's a product that is benefiting other investors. It's doing exactly what I was doing years ago and helping people discover opportunity that they otherwise never would have found.
No, I think the beautiful thing about your story is that like I find that through these interviews, like as I've been conducting them, everybody has these different defining moments. Like I don't like I remember I used to think it was like persistence that actually like helps you get successful, but then when I realized one day it's actually perseverance, because you can persistently do the wrong thing, doesn't mean it's going to work. But if you can persevere and shift and change when those moments pop up, like it's amazing what ends up happening. I mean, just think about that. Like it's like I went like thinking about the moment of like, I don't even know if I can flip a house, to like going to the place like, I don't know. I'm just going to go in. I'm going to wire a whole fucking house. That's crazy, man.
Yep.
But like we just jump and grow our wings on the way down and figure it out,
100%. And like a lot of people have told me when I kind of went through that and I was challenging myself, like I still know a lot of people that don't even know how to swing a hammer or turn a screwdriver that, do own fix and flip companies or even own construction companies, but they themselves don't possess any of the knowledge or expertise to do the things. And I see that, but the way that I do things, I don't need to be an expert at anything, but I like to understand how things work. And that's why I think I was able to kind of jump into the software space, right? Like people ask me like, how the hell, you're a dumb high school dropout. Like, how did you build a software that's more sophisticated than anything else out there? And it's like, I think at a fundamental level, it's because I take things apart and I dissect them. And while I may not be an expert in anything, I do understand the fundamental level of how things work, which gives the ability to then hire people and manage them so they effectively do the vision that, exists.
It's called an engineer mindset. So like as an engineer, naturally, I like to tinker. I like to figure out how things work. I don't need to get to the point where it's like, I know everything about it, but if I can see conceptually, like in my brain, how different pieces are put together, it's kind of like walking a house, right? You can walk a house and look at it and be like, yeah, I can move this. I can move this. I can move these components. And it's more on the database you have of information you've received already to know exactly what's possible, and then I know how long something's supposed to take.
Right.
So if I absolutely assistant, it's like, that doesn't take 9 hours. I know it doesn't take 9 hours. I was a moron and I figured it out in 4.
Yep.
So if you do this all day, it should probably take you 2.5. But if it takes you more than 4, this doesn't match.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
I completely agree, man. And so take me through a situation where you thought it was going to be easier than it actually was when you got into like fix and flipping. Let's use that as an example.
Oh man. I just shared a reel the other day on Facebook from the CEO of NVIDIA, where he was in an interview and they asked him, like, if you were 20 years old again and you were at the coffee bar with a couple of your closest friends and you were talking about vision and plans to develop what you now have built today, what would you talk about? And he goes, I wouldn't do it. I would not do it. Like, to be an entrepreneur at not even like a really high level, which obviously he is in that role, but at any level to sustain, like you said earlier, the amount of perseverance that you have to possess, like you can't even predict how much something is going to suck. Like, but that's also a superpower of an entrepreneur, is to run into the fire, not knowing what's going to happen along the way, and be accepting of that and be able to adapt and overcome as things come your way. But if most things in my life, and this correlates to the software, it correlates to the fix and flip company, it even correlates to rentals that I own. If I could go back in time with the knowledge I have today, I don't know that I would have done most of the things that I've already done. And I am extremely grateful for everything that I've done. But yeah, man, it's just, we deal with so many things, so many unexpected things along the way, and you just get punched and kicked in the teeth when you're down. Yeah, I mean, just on the fix and flip side, to your point, almost every property, every project that we do, we run into something that was unexpected. Like the most recent one that I'm dealing with right now, and it's minuscule. It doesn't really matter, but it's unexpected, unpredictable things, right? We shouldn't have even needed permits for the amount of work that we're doing and the type of work that we're doing at a property that I just purchased 2 weeks ago. And this specific township, the municipality, all that we're doing in there is flooring, and we're like replacing a vanity and a bathroom paint, like very, very light cosmetic renovation. And they're like, oh, you need a permit for flooring, you need a permit for this. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Like, typically permits are only for work that you need to inspect to make sure that the quality is okay and it's safe for someone to live there. What the hell are you going to inspect with the flooring, man? Like, I don't understand, and things like that. Like, all right, so there's obviously the monetary aspect, which I was frustrated because it was like $1,000 in permits that we didn't predict, we didn't project, and it's only a $25,000 rehab. So $1,000 overage right out of the gate. It's like, all right, well, that's frustrating. But more so than that, it's that it slows us down. We didn't account for, now we have to have an inspector come out and do all these things. That could end up adding a month, 6 weeks to the project, as crazy as that sounds. But those things, they happen all the time.
So I've done a few flicks and flips, I would say like 11. I've personally done 3 full renovations of homes that we live in different phases and different elements. And what I will say is that whatever I think it's going to cost, I just immediately add 20 to 30% onto there. Because we went into a situation where I think about this house in general. we didn't get approved on permitting or like inspector to come out. So the inspector is supposed to come out on one day, doesn't show up that day, shows up the next day. The crew's not here for the inspection point to go. And he's like, I don't like how you did this outlet on this side. And then another inspector comes and but the inspector prior actually said that outlet is fine.
Exactly right.
You're like, the inconsistency of there. Then it gets even more interesting of like, we built a gym in the basement, and the crew that we talked to said it's going to take 3 months. We're putting LVP on the floor. We're framing, drywall. That's it. Like there's nothing really special in their paint. The door that we told them that we wanted, they didn't properly plan for the door. So they come in, they show them like that door opening is not large enough. We need double doors. You see the double door over there, double door over here. The HVAC system, the person who came out who made the assessment, it was like, well, I can't actually do that with that type of HVAC system. I need to run piping here, so I've got to cut a hole on the other side in order to move it over. And then the thing that ran into was after the Christmas holiday, a lot of their workers are from like non-Americans. They didn't come back. So that's an issue. 2-month project ends up being like 7 months. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, so we actually, I get to the point, it's like 2 months, not too bad. So I bought a gym membership, which I hadn't had at that time in like 4 years. Bought a gym membership. I still have my wife's Peloton bike set up and it's kind of good to go. And I'm like, you know what? I just literally moved all the couches in the rec room, moved it over, and I just set up all the equipment.
There you go.
I hired a guy to come in, set up an equipment. I was like, I need to work out somewhere in the house. So I'm just there on carpet, like just doing lifts and different things. And like, it'll work itself out in some way.
That's hilarious. Somewhat similar, but like at my office building here, I bought this coming up on 3 years ago now. And at the time I had a sizable staff. I had 12 in-person employees and everything. And in the basement, we just set it up literally last week as a new podcast studio. But my plan was I was going to put a gym down there for myself and the employees and everything. And I got busy, I got tied up, and then I ended up laying off some staff for the wholesale company because I kind of started focusing on some of the software things, whatever, and ultimately nixed the idea of putting a gym down there. And it's just so funny because I was literally going to buy like $50,000 worth of gym equipment and probably spend 20 grand building out this room. And I was like, yeah, man, looking at it from like a logical approach, a $50 gym membership a month sounds a lot more logical, but obviously in your home is a different level of convenience.
Yeah. So that was the gift that COVID gave me. Prior to COVID, I could not work out at home because I just couldn't get the feeling and the rush and like being at the zoo where you can like people watch and do other things. But COVID forced me and my wife to get used to working out at home. And then it was super nice to be like, oh, I just wake up and go downstairs and it's there. And so then I trained for CrossFit and the CrossFit Games, like in my home. So I was used to training like intensely by myself to get that edge. And then I got to the point where it's like I could train without music because now I'm in a place where it was more of a competition. So because I knew on the competition floor, I'm not going to be able to control the music. True. So I just like move stimulus in different ways and different elements, but I still value connection with human. And like when I travel, I love going to gyms because I'm like, oh, I don't get to do this. It's a gift. You're like, oh my goodness, there's other people here. There's different moments. So like, that's fun. And those moments, but that was just but now it's a matter of like, if I'm in between calls, it's like, all right, cool. I got 20 minutes. I'm just going to go ahead, knock out some stuff real quick.
That's sweet.
And go through that. And so my wife loves it. It's more for my wife than more so for me because she's the one that like works out more. For her, it's like her nirvana. She gets to go do it. It'd be like me having a 16-car garage,
Yep, brother. That in itself, happy wife, happy life. Whatever they want, they get.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, cool. That's why the house is structured the way it is. And
I love it.
So yeah, man. So thinking about your journey of what you've done in the last decade, one of the things that I tell people is that they overestimate what they can do in a year, but they underestimate what they can do in a decade. Could you have ever imagined your life now 10 years ago?
No, I couldn't have. Still to this day, I'm not a guy like, I hate when people ask me the question like, where do you see yourself 5 years from now, or even 3 years from now? Because honestly, I can say with 100% certainty, I have no idea. You know, what I know is the path that I'm on, and I know what I want to do, but I don't try to tie a timeline to that. And I know people will object and say, oh, well, a goal without a timeline isn't a goal at all. But I would push back and say what I have isn't really a goal. You know, like what I have is a lifestyle. It's a series of choices and decisions, kind of like we were talking about before we started, you know, having, I don't know, everything that I'm doing right now, like with the software, like if the only thing that mattered to me was making as much money as humanly possible right now, I would have continued wholesaling houses and scaled that up and ramped that up a little bit more. And I could have easily paid myself a ridiculous amount of money year after year, right? That's not really what I cared most about. Like what I cared most about was being able to do something in my life. And up until 3 years ago, I had no idea what this was. I still had this in the back of my mind, but I want to make what I feel is an impact and a difference while I'm on this planet. And probably a lot of this ties back to losing my dad and just dealing with that traumatic event. And it just kind of burn something in my brain. Like I want there to be a purpose of me being on this planet. And I think I have much more ability to make a difference, make an impact at scale to a lot of people doing what I'm doing with software than doing what I was doing with flipping a lot of houses, wholesaling a lot of houses, and buying rentals. In the short term, I could absolutely make more money with that. Yeah. In the long term, I know that I will make more of a difference and an impact with the software. And also long term, I'll be able to make significantly more money with the software. Got to get there though, right?
I understand exactly what you're saying because prior to the podcast, and the audience should know this by now, I refer to retirement as being a space where you stop doing the thing that you don't want to do and you start living the life that you choose to do. And so retirement is a mentality. And so I also know that like I'm a hunting dog. So no matter what, like I've raised different breeds of dogs. If you get a dog that needs to hunt and needs to run and needs to be active, if you leave it inside a small apartment or small house and it doesn't get its exercise that it needs, that dog's going to tear up stuff. So there's this interesting place of just understanding who you are. And then once you understand who you are and you accept yourself, then you figure out, okay, how do I want to deploy who I am? And I also think you got the gift of life, which was you understood your mortality at a young age. And because without it, it seems like you can do everything infinitely. Right. And you just chase all these different opportunities. Like there's unlimited opportunities. Once I realized, holy crap, there's so much opportunity in the world. Yep. It's everywhere. Talk to any guy in real estate. It's never a deal issue. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, yep. It's an ATM. You could just keep pressing the button as many things as you want to, but there's some side of trade-off you have to have in life. I'd be curious, and you were like, because for me, my understanding my mortality made me want to be more present with my kids. Made me want to shut off things at certain times, which is why I take them to soccer practice. I go to the Girl Scouts so last week we had the Super Bowl parade. Then went from the Super Bowl parade to my daughter really wanted to go to SmackDown. So we go to the Cap One Center and we're watching SmackDown live. And then next morning, awesome. I knew at 10 a.m., I'm dressed up as Cookie Monster, slinging cookies in the sleep. You see this giant Cookie Monster out there dancing and playing music and doing stuff to get people to come buy Girl Scout cookies.
Dude, that's awesome.
And all of that was because like meaning, I want to be a human being, like who am I being? Not a human doing, because that's just pointless. You can make endless money. I'm curious, like what meaning means to you for like you and your family now that you're at a place where I would think you went from quality control to now you're living out who you choose to be. To me, that sounds like the retired lifestyle.
Yes, and that is legitimately how I feel. Still, I get a lot of pushback from not my direct family, not my wife, or I have three kids, but like extended family or friends. I still get pushback like, you work too much. You should spend more time with your family. You should be more balanced. And Honestly, there's nothing that I hate more than the fucking word balance. I think, I don't know, as an entrepreneur, it's like, if you're going to have any level of success, maybe not for your entire life, you don't have to be unbalanced, but for a period of time, you are going to be unbalanced. You are just going to be grinding away trying to make something work. And I don't know, I guess the way that I am, I think this will probably change in the coming years. And I still kind of feel bad saying this, but like my two oldest daughters, my oldest is 13, then I have a 7-year-old, and now we just had a son. He's 3. Up until having my son, I would still be home. Like I work a lot, man. I work a lot. Seriously, like 12-hour days are common for me. 6 days a week is common for me. And I would still always be at sports events. I would still, any of the important occasions, I'm always there. I never miss anything because I do have the ability, right? I have the ability to just shut it off and go. But I always felt that with my wife and my daughters, the best way that I can be a role model and provide for them is doing what I'm really good at and creating things, and yes, making money and everything. Now, I think with my son coming into this world and being 3 years old, it's like, I don't know, I will probably internally feel the necessity to be more present and everything, if that makes any sense. I don't know.
I think it's more of like different phases of life have different levels of importance. So I like to do a lot of research on like human behavior and so there's a frame of thought where it's, hey, guess what? I want to be there every single moment of the day and I'm always around them. But I would much rather be the example than try to show somebody else an example when it comes to children. So they know that while I do work, you are with me. It's why my backdrop is my backdrop, because I let the kids design the backdrop. When I travel, I take a toy or something with me, but I want my kids to understand that like it's not all cupcakes and rainbows. Like there are moments where I'm home and I'm able to do things. There's also moments where it's just balls to the wall because I'm birthing something.
That's right.
And so in every different phase in business has a different phase of birthing. It's like the problems of a 3-year-old are different than the problems of a 13-year-old. Yep. So like there's it's the variance that happens. And then in different phases of life, I also don't believe in coincidences. Like certain children in certain phases of life come to you because of the things that they have as far as their desires and meaning and how they were wired. Because I also believe that we're built with these natural inclinations to want to do things.
Yep.
So while in this phase of life, physical presence may not be required, in a different phase of life, it will be.
Exactly right.
And what matters is the moment that I'm with you, am I actually with you? You know what
exactly.
I mean? And so yeah, like it creates such opportunity, but I can't tell another person what matters in their life or not.
Right. And that's where, like I have a podcast, so I talk a lot. I share a lot of my experience and my my perspective and philosophy on a lot of things, but I try to reiterate the point to people. Like I have guys all the time that are trying to mimic and mirror what I've done in business, in real estate, in, whatever. And people will often pick up on, well, I heard you say on a podcast that this is the way you handle this, so that's the way that I'm going to do it also. And it's like the way that I handle parenting my children may not work for somebody else, and it's not right or wrong. And by the way, same can be said for business in its entirety. Again, going back to the point of mastermind groups and everything, I have connected with some of the top guys in the real estate industry, and it's really cool with some communities how sharing and like open some people are with sharing systems, procedures, all this stuff. And it's like, wow, if I have your SOP on exactly how to launch this campaign, of course it's going to work for me. And that is not how it always works out. And a lot of that comes down to the unique way that you are, or the way that you manage people, or the way that, anything. It could be literally anything. People believe that they can copy and paste because they know a little bit of snippet of your procedure or your philosophy or whatever it is. And it's just like, you have to be able to successfully read between the lines, to not screw yourself.
It's so true. It makes it quite unique. Like when you start out in the beginning phases of whatever thing you're learning, you're just in this phase where I'm taking every information in and I'm testing everything to go through, and it has to be this way because it's the way that person wrote their workouts.
Yep.
And it reminded me of CrossFit. Like in CrossFit, I thought was once you got used to it, that you would just get better, and then it wouldn't be as painful. That was naive of me until I realized the better you get, the more you just get used to it hurting. And so then you understand the variance of like when to go harder and when to not, how to be able to assess your body and how to not. And these are all things that most people can't comprehend, right? Like I'm like, and especially if they were like any type of athlete, because they go in and they're just like, I just got to go hard in every workout. I don't want to let a girl beat me. I won't want to do these kind of things. I want to be the best because everybody's judging me. And then you realize nobody cares.
No,
like,
not at all.
Nobody cares. Like it's just, then you understand pacing, you understand capacity, like there's just so much more that happens to go into as little itty bitty programming of a workout on that day.
Right.
So it's the same thing in life. And that's why I say like live of your own accord, figure out who you are, and then take that through the lens of how you view life. And then and take what works and test and throw the other shit out. Doesn't matter.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
So
I love that phrase. I'm going to mess it up, but it's something along the lines of like comparison is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
And it's so true, man. It's like the only thing or person that you should ever compare yourself to is a previous version of yourself.
Completely. Yeah. Comparison is the thief of joy.
There we go.
I know exactly what you mean though, because that happens in the younger phases of life, right? Especially nowadays. I feel bad for teenagers because I didn't grow up knowing what my next door neighbor down the street was doing or how they were dancing, or I wasn't getting ready with them and watching that content. But now in this phase, I go, okay, if somebody's doing something, I just celebrate what they're doing. Good for them, man.
I love that.
They're like, I don't care. You do what you do, you boo boo. Like if that's what matters to you. I have friends that are calling me and they're saying, this is what matters to me. Cool. But me being the contrarian that I am, and the audience that's listening, it's like, just be the contrarian self that you are. For so long, we want to fit in when we're just that weird kid. Be weird, man. Like celebrate being weird. Wear your Philly 316 shirt. It's all good. Like,
I love it.
I'm literally wearing it.
I figured. I saw the top of it there.
Yeah. So and I got my Stone Cold belt. It represents like that just level of badassery. And I think that's the thing. And especially if you're listening to this message right now, you're probably sitting there and you're like, hey, I want to take the leap, but I'm really not sure. I'm kind of afraid. What message would you give to that person? They know that they've been successful in life. They're to the point where they're already an accredited investor. They know, they know how to produce and show up. What kind of message would you give to that individual?
It's such a great question. And like, I can reflect back to earlier on in my journey, because I probably got this question a lot more back then than I do now. And I was always the cheerleader for entrepreneurship, right? I also had a lot of friends that were high income earners, and everybody saw what I was doing early on in my journey and having some level of success from other people's lens, not even my own. And people would be like, wow, you did that. Like, I want to do that too. And years ago, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I would tell everybody, yeah, man, you should quit your job. You should come over to the world of being an entrepreneur. You're your own boss. Everything's great. And early on, like I did have a friend that I felt so terrible, man. Like I was that cheerleader for him. And in hindsight, he was not designed to be an entrepreneur, man. It's like, and that's okay, by the way. People also take that as like a insult, like, well, I can do that too. It's like, no, man, everybody is built and wired totally differently. And to the topic of earlier, you don't know what you don't know until you're in it. But this guy, like, I kind of helped him do his first fix and flip and everything. And man, he should not have come into anything where he was working for himself and not accountable to a boss or a manager, right? It's just like, Not everybody is wired for it. And, you know, luckily he got out and he didn't really get burned too badly, but that was the eye opener for me that, wow, maybe I should stop being the shill for being an entrepreneur, because it is not for everybody. And then since then, like, I've had a lot more knowledge and experience shed unto me, right? And now when somebody comes to me, especially like you're talking about with your audience and the demographic that they are, especially if they're high income earners and everything, like the last thing that you should probably do is go out and flip houses. Or I still wouldn't dissuade anybody from buying rentals, because that can be a very strategic move also for, you know, tax benefits and everything. But so many people are more attracted to fix and flip because of HGTV, right? The things that they see, the highlight reel, it seems sexy. If you are a high income earner, you want nothing to do with being an operator of a fix and flip organization. You are much better served finding good experienced operators and being a lender. Be the bank. You know, it's safer. It's much less knowledge or experience necessary on your end. You need some good legal documents and everything, and you probably want to have somebody, an attorney, review things so you're setting things in the proper legal way that you're protected. But being a lender is the way, man.
I completely agree. It was the eye-opening moment for me where I'm going and I'm like, hold up. I like autonomy. Like, I am a person who loves autonomy. For some people, they love going their calendar and seeing it like all booked out, like for every day for the next 2 to 3 weeks. I like scheduled fuck off time. Like, in the middle of the day. You know, I'm a professional napper, so I like to nap. I like to find memes. I like to post them. I like to call random friends and just be like, I don't like you, and just hang up. You know, like I like showing up at lunchtime wearing onesies at school. You know, like, but I realized that scheduled time is kind of like playtime. And then it sparks creativity. And I come back, and that's why I have whiteboards everywhere. Because it's like, if I'm in creativity time or I'm down playing arcade games, things like that. And being a private lender was one of the things that I realized. I'm like, damn, what everybody really wants is like no matter what's going on, as I mentioned earlier, opportunities are endless. But capital is a limitation. So I looked at it and I go like, well, hell, how the hell do you solve the capital problem? And that's when I found out. I was like, oh, we hear this term like hard money lender. What the hell is a hard money lender? It's somebody who realized, I'm going to take my money and make sure it's making children. And those children are in the workshop working constantly. And it's growing like little, as kids are human petri dishes, you know, just spread germs everywhere. And that's all elementary schools is like little petri dishes of things. I want my money to repeating the exact same behavior. That's right. Doing that process, because then it's working around the clock while I'm investing my time, a majority of my time, doing the thing that I love the most. Absolutely.
Fully agree. And to your point of limitations of not just capital, but mental capacity, man. Like, that's why for the last year and a half, like now I'm kind of at a point where I am purchasing, I'm doing some flips again, I'm buying some rentals and things. But for probably a year and a half, I didn't really buy too much. I was still wholesaling some houses, but I knew that I didn't have the mental capacity. And I do have the connections. I have the resources. I have the capital. I have the ability, but I knew that even the mental capacity that it takes to do one renovation would have taken my focus away from what I was building with the software, you know, and it's very easy to, as an opportunist, like you mentioned, it's sometimes hard to say no to opportunity, you know, sometimes hard to say no, but you also have to correlate a realistic amount of time, effort, and energy that something's going to take. From the private lending perspective, there's not a whole bunch of, you know, there's not a high barrier. It's like you have the money, you have legal documents in place, and you work with people that you know, like, and trust. It's like, man, that weeds out pretty much most of the issues that you could potentially have.
Yeah, it's totally true. And I think that there's so many good quality operators out there. You know, you pick the assets that have meaning to you. I was chatting with a gentleman earlier today. He's like, why do you like affordable housing? I said, because that's where most of my family lives. Like this income divide isn't just something because I see it as an opportunity and because the data shared it. I said I chase meaning in life.
It's a necessity.
You know, like it's a necessity. It's something that has meaning to me. Like if you want more leverage, you build a business. You know what I mean? Like leverage and wealth is going to come like through business because there's infinite. You can take that software. All of a sudden, you got one database in an area, and then you implement it into database. You go nationwide. Then you pour gasoline on the fire because you already have a good user base that's there. Ads, you know, like ads. Let it run. Create affiliates. There's a whole process you can do on the leverage piece there. But like when I look at like wealth preservation and I look at like those things and do something that has meaning to you, it'll completely change your life. So as we get ready to land the plane, I want you to tell people like, how can they find you?
I am very findable personally. You can just Google Drew Farnese. You'll find I have a YouTube channel. I have a podcast called the Revamp Podcast. I am on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of the socials as Drew Farnese. The software, you can go check that out at revamp365.ai. You can reach me personally, Drew at revamp365.ai. Hit me up, reach out. Glad to talk to anybody. You know, I love this stuff. I love real estate. I love software. I love business development.
Yeah, me too. Dog loves the hunt. So
absolutely.
So, man, I appreciate Drew. I appreciate your time, man, and just taking the time to share because, like, this isn't just like something you learned in a book. This is something you live, eat, and breathe. And I just really appreciate you hopping on today and connecting with my audience.
Absolutely. I want to thank you so much for having me on, and hopefully there was some wisdom in there.
Well, hindsight's always 20/20. It'll make sense eventually. Somebody.
Of course.
So as always, folks, thank you once again. Listen to another episode. Stay hungry and cheers, everybody.